I'll just say though, my neck is on fire right now. I don't know why. I'm gonna try to give it a little crack. A little crack. Okay. Okay, everybody. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Talkaholic podcast. Now, you guys might be thinking, first episode, Roman, you had your best friend on, Tyler Crucina. Second episode, you had professional wrestler El Tigre Amore on. Third week, can it get any more random? It can, because we're going back to a different chapter of my life, that being when I was a student down in the great city of Bloomington at Indiana University, and we have my former director. I guess he was my boss, even though I was technically unemployed, but I did give them hours of free labor at the IU Student Foundation. We have Mr. Trent McGee. Trent McGee, how are you doing today, sir?
Roman, I'm honored. I mean, to be on this podcast, to talk to you at this early morning. The only thing I'm disappointed about is you don't have like tuna and ground beef and rice to enjoy this conversation.
Well, how do you know I didn't have any this morning, Trent? You just
That's
don't
true.
know.
That's true. You were not eating while podcasting because you're a professional. I apologize for making that assumption that you would be.
Yes, that is a wrongful assumption. But I mean, to give the people some context, why would you assume that I would be eating tuna or ground beef this early in the day?
Well, you got a protein. you got to get that protein. And this is how I saw you all of last year. So, you say free labor, and I say, yeah, but I had to put up with you eating tuna.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
it's like I think it equals out, to be honest with you.
Bro, do you think I didn't feel bad anytime I had to do that? Like you think I didn't feel bad like when I would put my Tupperware in the microwave in the communal kitchen and I knew I was gonna stink up the place? Like I felt I felt guilty.
Feel bad, feel guilty, maybe negative feelings, but at least you didn't read those emotions as like, hey, I probably shouldn't do this again. You just powered. And that's why you did it. It's because you wanted the power, you wanted the protein.
But you know me, Trent, and you know that I can get a little hangry, and it was better off that I went and made sure I got my food in for the sake of others and yourself. You didn't want me in a crabby mood.
Actually, great point. Great point.
I mean, judge. I was gonna say, and let's not act like we didn't catch you with your hand in the cookie jar every now and then. You know what I mean? It's like everyone was snacking at that place.
It wasn't in the tuna jar. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
that's the one thing.
Well, I mean, take one look at your Instagram, and like you'll realize soon that it is not a fitness account. Correct.
Couldn't be more opposite people talking to each other at the moment.
No, we're alike in some ways, in the best of ways. But I will say before people get confused, this will not be a fitness-related podcast. If that's what anybody, I know, judging from the broad shoulders and everything, that you might thought Trent, he's here to talk about powerlifting. We are not. We are here to talk about what's going on this weekend. And what would that be, Trent?
I think it's a thing called the Little 500, which you and I are big fans of.
Big fans. I had to learn to become a fan, as you might know. Yeah.
Same, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, but for the uninitiated, Trent, and this is a question I've had to explain in way too many interviews. What is IUSF? What is the Little 500?
Yeah.
To the
you're totally right. Like I just moved to a new state, so I actually don't work for the Student Foundation or oversee the Little 500 anymore. And Roman knew that. He was my last full class. That's he always has a special place in my heart for that. But I come up here in Michigan and people are like, oh, what do you do for work? And it's like, oh, I'm in consulting. And I used to work at IU. And they're like, what'd you do at IU? Mm-hmm. And that's like the hardest question to answer. So here's my rhythm. Depending on age, I go, have you seen the movie Breaking Away? Because Breaking Away is a cult classic. It's something that people do enjoy. And I say, okay, have you seen the movie Breaking Away? If they say no, which is what most people say, because unfortunately a lot of people haven't seen that movie, I do roll into the whole, okay, so IU had a student foundation, which is the IU Student Foundation, and it's raising money for fellow IU students. And they do a thing called the Little 500, which is a charity bike race that draws about 16,000 people to it. And usually if you say that number, they're like, what? And you're like, okay, well, it's like fraternities and student groups compete against each other. And it ticket sales and students helping students and all that stuff kind of drives the philanthropy part. And that's kind of how I describe it.
Yeah.
People still don't get it, and that's fine.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I can attest to that same exact sort of monologue, followed by the I don't really think that they got the full scope of it because it's kind of just impossible to
Just
explain
dead
it.
behind the eyes
Yeah.
by the end of the conversation.
Oh, okay, that sounds fun. That sounds fun. And I'm just like, you don't fucking get it, dude. You don't know what it means to me. No, but it was. I can certainly say that at my time at IU, that it was definitely like the most fun I had, but the most I got the most out of that. Then I was involved. I was an involved kid. I was busy, but IU Student Foundation. I mean, I have the notebook here. I have the poster on the wall. I have the zip up. I can see my little plaque. I mean, when I think of IU now, or whenever I'm gonna, as I look back at IU in the future, I mean, that's probably gonna be the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But that being said, we've both moved on from our Bloomington days. You now are up in Michigan. But I guess, how did it feel? Your time as the director of IUSF wasn't a super long period. It was 2022 to 2024, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2.5 if you count my stuff that I did in the fall, so it's about 2.5 years.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, I didn't know what that organization really looked like before you stepped in, but from all accounts, there was basically major changes. And even from going from my junior year to my senior year, I saw them in terms of how you kind of the structure of the organization, the workflow, that sort of thing. And you got a lot done in those 2 years. But with you, obviously having to move away and your role changing with the Student Foundation, would you say that you were able to accomplish everything you kind of set out to do, or do you feel like there was kind of some stones that got left unturned?
It's kind of interesting. I usually self-describe something that someone had told me about myself, if that makes any sense. That probably didn't make any sense, but just go with it. One of my former bosses said, if there is a disaster somewhere and we're jumping on the helicopter to go to that disaster, you're one of the first people I'm taking. And and I was like, that's great, right? And basically what I drew from that and what I know from my experiences in my career, and even now in the work that I do, is like when places need change, I'm usually equipped for that because I one, take a lot of energy out of it. Like I love it. And two, I have a pretty decent ability to change things rapidly enough for people to feel that progress happening. And I would say the Student Foundation being around, you were the 75th steering committee, right? So there's 75 years. It needed, it had some great people that worked there and they did some awesome work, but everything, even the best of things, needs new life and new direction at times. And I got the chance to be a part of that and been trusted and was empowered to be like, hey, this is a place that's kind of, it's stagnated, or it's at least not growing to the point that we need it to grow. The brand is kind of, it's not diminished, but it just wasn't known as much on campus as maybe it needed to be. And the philanthropy part of why they did the Student Foundation was being missed. And I took that on myself and went. And I wasn't planning on leaving. And usually I always tell people my change cycles are about 5 years.
Yeah.
But and so I left halfway through that, and I'm very sad that I left, but it's in great hands, as you know. And the other part of this is like things happen, positive things happen so fast when we were there, like your last year, and this year they've just exceeded all the record-breaking numbers from last year, that it felt like maybe my 5-year timeline was even too long, drawn out. Change was happening faster.
Yeah, and I can definitely speak to that. You were willing to move things along and plans along really quickly. I remember I would kind of hear things like, "Well, he wants to do this," or "We're trying to do this." I'm like, "Well, when's this going to happen?" Oh, like, "Oh, he wants to start doing it like next month." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess." And I know at least behind the scenes, a lot of my fellow SC would kind of take. Were a bit apprehensive to some of the changes because they'd be like, well, this was tradition and, we've always done it this way. And I think a lot of times you were willing to you knew that heat was there and you were willing to kind of deal with it. Not kind of, you would. And I always
We're talking about the suits right now. We're talking about the suits.
We're talking about suits. We're talking about X and Y and Z. But I mean, the suits was obviously that's like the big one. People will, at least SC24, if you're listening, that's the one that they'll go to, because it is tradition. It was tradition for every steering committee class, and to those who don't know, steering committee are kind of the ones who help handle the logistics of the race, the ticket sales, the philanthropy, yada yada. Anyways, every year they're kind of
in Roman in that instance, I think it worked out better than even I had planned. It didn't work out the way they originally wanted it to go, but it like where we did the traditional black suits. But it didn't go as far as I wanted to go, which was get rid of any sort of jackets and be branded differently. And we fell in the middle ground that I think actually ended up better. And that's the biggest thing about leadership. You got to listen sometimes, because your people that you lead and work with sometimes have better ideas than even you do.
No, I absolutely agree. We definitely reached like a happy medium, I think, for everyone. Because we were gonna ditch the suits entirely, and then we ended up with the blazer. And it's like, we're 17 of us can't figure out to get matching khaki pants. They're dumb. I mean, Trent, you know just as well as me, there's some stuff in there that would just drive me crazy. At meetings where I'm like, why are we talking about this for more than 5 minutes? And it was always clothing related. I mean, I don't know about you, but was that stuff frustrate you? What were the things that would kind of be like, are we serious right now? Are we serious?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, this is a bigger probably lesson in change management, that there are hot button issues that will drive the people trying to institute the change crazy. And I would say the suits and the clothes were one of them, because we were actually listening to former SE members, recent SE members, that were saying like, the suits they only wore one time, like, and it was hot, and like it was uncomfortable on race day, and we heard that, and when we were able to make that change, we looked at it from a cost benefit analysis, and we're like, we're spending a lot of money on these things that students are saying they don't want, so let's reinvest that into something else, and so we thought we were doing what students wanted, but students in the meantime, like you were just talking about earlier, is that like steering committee members in the moment were like, why are they making these changes? And I think for the most part, and there's probably people listening to this that disagree, and that's totally fine. That's part of being in a group. You're not going to get a universal popularity or approval rating. But like, I think that there is this element that like people would grumble about it and stuff like that. And then at the end or after it happened, they would look back and be like, oh, I get it.
Yes, right? Yes.
And there was a lot of changes like that I think were just hard for people to understand when you're going through it. And you, like myself, when I have the vision of what it could be and it ends up being that way, you of course want to be like, look, I was right, but that's not the point. And when you're in it and you're hearing like the negativity, it can be really demoralizing for people trying to go through change. But that's change management. It's a hard part, and that's why people hate change or even instituting change.
Yeah. And like, yeah, going back to what I said earlier, like I knew there had to have been plenty of times where you're like, man, they're gonna freaking hate me for saying this but it's like you as the director, and there's only, there's four adults overseeing basically a group of
All adults, but you're saying full-time staff.
Full-time
You're
staff.
an adult, Roman.
Yes. At that time is quasi, but yes. But I could only imagine, like, kind of having to deal with that sort of pressure. But I mean, you obviously more than handled it well. Something I did want to say is, it was hard going back to the suit thing. It was hard for me to raise my hand because I remember
You were the deciding vote. You were we said it had to be unanimous, and
yeah,
you made it unanimous.
I know, and I remember this being like, I kind of want my blazer. Everyone else wants the blazer, and that's just groupthink, I guess. But I mean, I still use it. I will still wear that blazer, so I am more than happy. And then I remember we happened to have was it Chuck Shameless came in that day, and talked to us, and he was discussing. He said that you guys should. We were talking about how we had the vote later on. He said that you guys should absolutely vote to keep the suits or whatever. But either way, that's stuff that unless you were in the room or in that building, you would not care about. But in the moment, it was everything.
It's a good lesson, right? Like,
Yeah.
there are things that when we're in a group that we are just so obsessed with that then looking back or talking to the outside, just like we were talking about the little 500, people just look at you like, wait, why did you care so much?
Yeah. But it's like, you got to look at the bigger picture. Everything takes on meaning when you understand it within its context. But either way, something else I wanted to ask you about was that obviously you now find yourself consultants. You're in consulting.
Yep.
You're in consulting now, and you were working in education previously, and then even before that, but you got your bachelor's in communication studies from Kansas State, yes?
Yeah, that's true.
That is true. I checked your LinkedIn, anyways.
Nice. I was wondering how you knew that. I was like, do you remember that from my wall?
No. But I was kind of just looking into it because I was curious. I was like, how did we end up here? I guess because to me, there was no Trent McGee pre-2023. But to you, there was. Sure. There's probably been a Trent McGee for what are we looking at now? 40, 38?
No, 37.
38. Okay, I said 38.
I won't be too offended by that.
No,
I actually don't mind getting older, and I like gray hair, so I'm fine.
But how did we find ourselves here, Trent? Because you started off communication studies, and then eventually you went back and you got your master's in counseling and student development, whatever that means. Am I right? And then from then you moved to IU and started working as an instructor / getting your MBA. What kind of prompted that change from communications and whatever it is you were doing in between then to all of a sudden I'm leading these students, leading the charge?
Well, it's so weird. Communication studies it's weird. This is a thing that it's communication, not communications with plural. Communications, plural, it means broadcasting, journalism, those type of things. Communication is interpersonal communication. It's a science that blends sociology and psychology of how humans communicate, and there's obviously different ways of that. So the public speaking is a huge part of that major, but also there are studies of persuasion, formulating arguments, small group communication, relational communications, which is one of the things I studied. intently because I couldn't get a girlfriend. So, you just go get a degree about it.
Yeah.
That was a big thing, like gender studies, like how masculine and feminine folks communicate with each other or across masculine and feminine. And so that was a big thing. And I love that major. And honestly, I wanted to go get a master's degree and go on and potentially with the PhD and study that and be a professor. It's your podcast listeners would be super bored with my life story. Just know that like during my 20s, I just did everything I kind of wanted to do. I taught at a high school. I coached ball, both soccer and basketball. I started my own business, did sports broadcasting because I really do like broadcasting. Covered small schools and like sold advertisements. Sporting Kansas City had a podcast for them back before podcasts were easy and really cool. GarageBand is actually how we did everything. And we launched. I was doing all of that stuff, and about 5 years in, I was doing it by myself and with occasional people working. And I was like, I'm kind of tired of this, and I want to get out. So I sold that business. When I say sold, it wasn't like a big merger or acquisition. It was I sold all the equipment essentially, and cashed out. Lived on that for like 6 months and substitute taught and coach, and then Guinness actually hired me to be a sales rep.
Yeah.
Did that in Denver, Colorado for a few months, gained 35 pounds, was up till 2 a.m. every night. Was not a lifestyle that I thoroughly enjoyed.
But I'm sure you were probably making money, dude.
In one way, I did thoroughly enjoy it. In others, I did not. So then I came back and I actually, weirdly, this is my greatest thing on my resume. I went from a Guinness salesman to a children's pastor at a church, like back-to-back stuff. And I started coaching again. It's pretty crazy. But I started coaching again. They brought me back because I kind of left at the end of the season, and then they brought me back at the beginning of the season. And a college actually asked me to come be their women's soccer coach. And that was a life change. It was no money. Like we're talking, I made $29,000 a year.
Yeah.
No money. I was a admissions counselor and a women's soccer coach. And so I went and did that and was still traveling back on weekends to this church. By the way, single this whole time.
Yeah.
This is how I'm able to do this.
I was gonna say this has to be the only way because same boat. I do anything. I want because I am.
100%. And I started my master's degree at Kansas State, which is right across the street from the small school I was coaching at. And I decided I really liked it. It was college student development. It is what its formal title is, counseling and student development, but the program was called college student development, and it was student affairs and working with students like yourself when you were a undergrad. And that was something I really enjoyed. And I wanted to like go that career track and leave coaching and leave, the church stuff and like just go that route. And that's what I did. And lucky for me, I met a girl that was in my class that I went out with a few times, and she found out had a boyfriend. I was going to say, yeah. And so to get back at her, there was other girls in my class that didn't really like me because I was kind of a talkative know-it-all, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
And I was like, they announced the class, it's a small cohort. And they're like, hey, we're going to go get tacos. And I was like, I never went with them. And I was like, oh, I'll go. Just to piss off the person next to me who didn't like them. Well, long story short, I met my wife that night, who was the one that invited me out, who didn't like me. So she's awesome, and she got a job at IU, and I followed her up here after having a full-time job at K-State for a little bit. Started at the Kelly School 5 years later, Little 500. So, and did my MBA. I was doing my PhD actually at IU, and I was like, if higher education collapses, which we're on the trajectory, what would serve me better? A PhD in college, like higher education, or an
MBA?
An MBA. And I said, okay, I'll do the MBA. So that's how I ended up here. See, it was really long, and you've already lost all your listeners, by the way. Analytics are going to be like, everyone's gone.
Well, I was in it. from the get-go.
Thanks,
I learned, and even like what stands out to me is I feel like I never knew that you coached women's soccer. We
talked a little bit that I coached soccer, but I don't get much into it. I mean, I wasn't a soccer player.
Yeah.
You were way better than me, but you don't have to be
Yeah,
talented
no.
athlete at something to coach it.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you go about educating yourself on coaching and getting pretty good at
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I mean, my real love in coaching was basketball. I just didn't get the opportunity to coach basketball. I actually did coach one college basketball game, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But I did play basketball at length until high school, when I became a yell leader. Yeah, a cute girl asked me to be a yell leader on the cheerleading team. I quit basketball.
And you
100%.
yeah, you
Hands up.
you didn't have to add the 100%. As soon as you said it, I knew
Loved
you.
it. Loved it. No shame. No shame.
And there shouldn't be.
Yeah, and I did that, but soccer was like this thing that I followed from a high level point of view, and the tactics. I really got immersed in it, and I was actually a manager for a soccer program during college, and so I was like, I knew the coaching, the practice, like
Yeah.
learning that type of stuff. But I could only really do it at a high level. Like if you said, "Hey, here's my 6-year-old kid. Like go teach them soccer skills."
Yeah.
That's on me.
That makes
I
sense.
have to get very developed players, and then go, "Hey, here's the tactics that we're going to
Oh,
employ in the game."
that makes a lot.
And
That
that
makes yeah.
and then you have assistant coaches who can teach skills, and
Yes.
that's what we did. Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So like from a technical, from the very like technique itself aspect, that
yeah,
was not you, but from the broader
tactical.
standpoint,
Yeah,
yeah.
running a
Okay.
program, recruiting. That's why college was better for me than even high school, because I could go find players.
So, but you weren't like were you the head coach then?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
how were you guys? How was Manhattan Christian College? Were they pretty good?
Yeah, my first year we went to the national tournament, which isn't it's a small school. It's like a Division 3, if you
Yeah,
know
but
anyone
still,
knows the levels and stuff like that. Yeah, it was really good, and we went to the national tournament. The next year, Manhattan was a place that's kind of like modern day NIL, and the fact that like you only really had 1 year players because they had this setup to where you could go to Manhattan Christian College and Kansas State at the same time, and it was pretty cheap, and it was non-scholarship, but you got a lot of academic scholarships your freshman year, and so people would go, and
Yeah.
then we would give them a bunch of scholarships, and then sophomore year they didn't have those scholarships anymore, and they're like, okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So if you caught a good recruiting class, is really good. The second year, my top recruit tore her ACL during women's soccer spring season.
Damn. R.I.P.
And it literally tanked it tanked our season because like you need like 1 or
Yeah.
2 solid players at that level, and she was going to be a
One of
top
them.
player.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I myself, my freshman year, I was playing ball up at a D3 school, so you knew that.
Yeah.
You knew I was playing ball as much as I
Yeah.
possibly could. Would that ever? No, I don't think it ever got in the way too much. I could think of one instance, a very important event for SC23, in which I left to go play. Me and Ryan James left to go and play a soccer game, and then came back, and I kind of felt guilty then too. But I kind of it was hard
Yeah.
for me because I wanted to I wanted to do all the things while I was in college, like really maximize my time there. I knew I was limited. And I think sometimes I just kind of stretched myself too thin. But
Yeah. Most
I
college
don't,
students do.
yeah, I don't know, dude. I know a couple people who come to mind. I'm like, I don't know what you did. I don't know. I will say though, at least it is a lot about who you surround yourself with, and that was kind of, I think, a big something. The reason why I got so much out of the IU Student Foundation was because I was around other students who I'm like, you kind of see like the things that they do and their resumes, and you compare it to, you try not to compare too much. Obviously everyone's different sort of thing, but you're kind of like, you see the level that other people hold themselves to, and it kind of makes you want to raise your own. And I think that's what I appreciate most, especially out of the 16 other people I was with on the steering committee, is like, I can point to any single one of them and say they rocked it at whatever they kind of set their mind to, or whatever they were doing within the IU Student Foundation or outside of the Student Foundation. And I think that's
Well, you all are crazy. I said this to you to everyone's faces. Like, I'm not hiding this. I was lucky that you were crazy, but like the amount of juniors and seniors that get involved at the Student Foundation and work as hard as you all do and the hours you put in is weird. And like in a good way, but it's weird. And I would have just been drunk my whole senior year if I was in your all shoes, but I wouldn't have been as smart as you to get to that point anyways. But I am just blown away every year by the dedication and commitment by Student Foundation folks. And honestly, Roman, that's like the biggest thing that I institute in all my stuff when I work with college students, like the Student Foundation Writers Council Steering Committee, is I just like, if you're going to be dedicated to this organization, you all are giving up time to be there. I'm going to have high expectations for you because I think like I owe you to like expect a lot out of you.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Like that. I'm not being taken for granted of being there or whatever. I just want to invest in you and want to like do excellent stuff because you all are, I don't want to waste your time.
No,
I think to not waste your time means like you expect a lot out of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could see how it could easily go that way because from a surface level, it's like, okay, especially like in the gunning process or whatever, it's like you have to reach X amount of volunteer hours. And if that's all it really was
you
if
don't
it was
have to. Just want on the record for the Student Foundation folks, you do not have to reach those hours.
It is recommended.
It's recommended.
Strongly recommended. And I just about reached that benchmark at the very end. Either way, it could have easily turned into.
Well, honestly, we don't ever talk about hours. Like when we make a decision, we actually do not compare hours. But I remember you and I had a great conversation in April about just kind of attitude and approach and of your junior year, and just like, and hopefully you took away from the conversation that I wasn't like pressuring you to stay.
Oh yeah,
it's just more of like, if you're going to be a part of this, man, like this is my expectation for you. If you don't want to do it, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like it's okay.
No, yeah. Yeah, no, that was easily, and that was definitely a conversation I wanted to touch on during this podcast because it was super, super impactful because it was at this point, my junior year, where I was, part of the IU Student Foundation. I did not know how biking still kind of worked. I had joined the organization junior year because Elaine Clark waved the bike in front of my face and told me that, to sign up. And I was signing up for anything and everything at that point. And then I kind of was like, Elaine. Shout out Elaine Clark. We love and miss you dearly. Hopefully I see you this weekend. Either way, shout out Lily too. Anyways, in the gunning process, which gunning is what you have to do in order to make it onto the steering committee, you have to, as a junior, just to, sell your soul to Bill Armstrong Stadium. No, it's a lot better than that, I swear. But either way, I was showing up. I was having a good time, but was I necessarily doing working to the maximum of my ability? Some might say no. Some might say no. And then God bless Sohi. She called me first and then kind of expressed to me like how I think from my perspective, I'm a very laid back guy, and I like to give that impression to people a lot too, that I'm just, I'm here for a good time, I'm chilling. And I think sometimes it gives off the vibe that, oh, he's laid back, so he just must not care. And obviously, like for me, it was easier for me to be like, no, I do care, because if I didn't care, trust me, guys, there's a million other things I would go and rather do if I didn't. But that necessarily wasn't being translated, and I didn't know that was not being translated at that time. So it did take, me and you. I remember I got called into the principal's office. That's what it felt like at first. I'm like, oh man, like Trent wants to talk to me. I think at that point we probably had not have a conversation, a one-on-one conversation longer than 4 or 5 minutes, maybe. And we walked in there, and I could tell from the get-go. It was like, okay, this is not him pointing a finger at my face telling me I need to do X, Y, or Z. It was very much how you described it, as in, this is kind of what we expect, and this is, you're here, and that's fine. And you even said it yourself. I remember you talking about like the bike race stuff. It's if that doesn't excite you necessarily, like there are other things you can kind of vest your interest in and get you to care about IU Student Foundation. And again, I did care, but it just wasn't being translated. I needed that push to be like, okay, Roman, it's not just about, it's good that you yourself feel like, you're here, you're invested, blah, 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 but you need to be able to demonstrate that and like show that enthusiasm to others, and especially in the process that in which I was in. And yeah, I mean, would you say I turned it around after that, Coach? What do you
Yeah, of
think?
course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is it's not. I actually hate evaluating and choosing folks, and I don't envy like the current group of gunners is like 30 or something. Like they've had over 30 like apply and be a part of it, which is wild, and they're gonna have to make some probably tough decisions, just like we did last year.
Yeah.
And have to cut really strong and good people just for the sake of like, a semblance of a model of leadership team and working together, like and having enough for people to do, which is a big
Exactly.
But so your group is smaller, but I was willing to go in with 15, 14 if 17 weren't great.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have no problem going with a smaller group. It's actually somewhat easier on some levels. But it was one of those things that you're right. Like everyone knew people liked you, but it was like body language and attitude showing up that like your peers and steering committee, the prior steering committee was picking up that like, does he actually care? And it was borderline that whole like caring part. And I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste anyone's time. Like, like if you don't want to do it, like that's fine. Like you're not being forced to stay here. It is not one of those things. And I always, you'll. It's funny they brought Sohi up because we have a mechanism, and hopefully no steering committee gunners are listening to this, but there's a mechanism under my leadership which could have changed. Is I was actually kind of distant from students, to be honest with you. Like I worked the most with the presidents and the vice presidents and the directors that started the second year. But I really didn't interact too much with every steering committee member or every writers council member. And there was a reason for that. And the reason is that, and gunners especially, and wheelers, the new writers council version of gunners. And the reason is that I felt like if I was distant figure, leadership, or distant figure, you knew me, I joked, right? Like hopefully you got that. We could put in checkpoints with students that needed to change their behaviors or direct actions or attitudes along the way, giving that person an opportunity before they felt like they were being called into the principal's office. And so like you had a mentor, Sohi, who reached out to you and said, hey, let's talk. And then hopefully you had maybe a president or vice president that said, hey, like the blah, blah, blah. And then they're giving me feedback going, hey, he's still not changing, right? And then it's either your assistant director comes in and gets involved, or then I get involved. And like get involved in it's just the conversation that we had. And so that and so there's a little bit of that tension between us, like, because there is this authority figure versus you're trying to get into the organization that I oversee. And we can have, hopefully, a very open and honest conversation that you hear from me. One, I have expectations for you if you're going to be here. And two, I'm not disappointed if you leave. And I say that in a good way. Like, you're not letting me down by leaving if you choose to leave. Honestly, I'm usually more proud. We had a steering committee member leave the year prior to you during the year.
Yeah.
And I wasn't upset. I love that kid. Like I text him on his birthday, right? Like I value him because he made a decision. This wasn't for me, and I'm stepping away. And I think that honestly, for college students and young adults and young professionals, and even older people, like man, that is a hard lesson to learn. Is actually saying no and leaving things.
Yeah. And I think I did have to that I talked about it earlier. My junior year, when I transferred over from my other school from freshman year to sophomore year, I basically I found myself with a lot more time on my hands because I wasn't playing soccer, I wasn't traveling or any practicing twice a day, yada yada. And then
Tough
So
transition for student athletes, for sure.
yeah. So my sophomore year, I had plenty of time to do basically whatever, and I basically did nothing. I would just go to class, go work out, and then go home, and that was it. And then my junior year, I was like, let me just join all of the things. And like I said earlier, I kind of think I stretched myself thin because I was working, I had class, I was in this organization, that organization, and I think it took away a bit for me across all things because I'm just tired, and then I'm already thinking about what I have to do later and where I have to be after this and that. And I think without knowing, I thought I can do all these things with 100% effort, 100% of the time, and if I just kind of will myself through it. But you kind of have to learn to take a step back and be like, okay, so
Yeah.
what do I really care about? Because I'm doing a disservice by actually showing up and raising my hand to do X, Y, or Z when really you don't have the time or the enthusiasm to be able to do these things to the best of your ability. It's kind of like when I was growing up in soccer, and I'm sure you hear it in a bunch of other sports too, where you're playing, and then they say like if you're hurt or you're tired, like ask for a sub because as much as we want to be tough and want to get the playing time and everything and the accolades, it's like you're doing your team a disservice by being out there if you're not able to give it 100%. You know what I mean?
Well, and this is a conversation that we could have a whole podcast on, but like I think student athletes struggle a lot to transition from structured practice, training, all that stuff to like their own personal time management. And where you had a disadvantage, usually what you just said is something that I used to work when I worked with first year students. I would work a lot with freshmen. Because freshmen are coming out of high school where you had 8 to 3 or whatever it was, school, and then you usually had after school activities, and then your mom and dad like scheduled like taking you around, or you had your own car, and like but you had curfew and you had time and dinner and like all that type of stuff that you had to be back for, and so you have this so structured time, and then you get to college and you're like, I have so much time on my hands, and then you overload your time because you don't have that time management. You were a transfer and coming not only a transfer to a new institution that had a lot more things than your previous institution just from sheer size, but also like you were a student athlete. And it's really hard to be a student athlete to going into an unstructured time where you're not demands of time, that you were going through the same thing that 18-year-olds are going through 2 years prior, and probably at your old institution 18-year-olds are going through. And so it takes some time to adjust. And I think part of what I loved about being in university settings was I had the opportunity to do what we call like challenge and support. Like it's challenging you, like we did that conversation in April, hopefully was a challenge to you, like what you just said. And then go, okay, if you're going to commit to being here, we're going to support you in your growth. We're going to make sure that you thrive here. And that was one of my favorite parts of working with college students, was that aspect. And I think you needed that conversation at that time to hopefully kind of prioritize things. And of course, you were a fantastic steering committee member and definitely didn't regret having you on. Was really lucky that you chose to stay.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I do remember you, or it was an Emily, or I can't remember, but one of you guys was like, yeah, Roman, we were worried about, not, you guys said it in a very joking way, but you guys were like, yeah, you were one of the ones that we kind of had our eye on, like starting off with SC. And I kind of saw it myself within people within SC, where it's like, okay, we're on SC now. The hard work is done, because gunning is, from a labor perspective, I would say, the hard part to get on SC. And I would see it where it's like, okay, we're on SC now. The school year's going on. We just got to make it to Little 5, and we just got to make sure at Little 5's fine, and we'll basically run things the same way, and we'll keep chugging along. And I kind of felt like going into the school year that was how it was gonna. Some people were at least gonna be, and it was only some people who I kind of felt were like kind of taking their eye off the ball. But for me, and I think I expressed this to you, and hopefully I could express it through the things I was doing. But I wanted to make SC24 like one of the greatest steering committees of all time. And I don't know kind of what that entails. I would say it a lot, like, no, guys, we're going to do it. We're going to sell the most tickets. We're going to raise X amount of money. We're going to do, let's put on events we've never put on before. Let's do things we've never done before. And man, I loved it so much, man. It was so fun. So fun. And again,
I agree with you. And I think that's there was a lot of talk when I took over the Student Foundation of like, do we need a leadership curriculum, or do we need a leadership class, or do we need to have like structured leadership training? Mm-hmm. And I always reject that notion. Like, I think leadership lessons and stuff are good. Like, hopefully people listen to this podcast are like, wow, I'm learning a lot from Roman, from leadership lessons through his experiences. Like, that's good. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I read books on leadership, like those type of things. But I think the best way to, especially seniors in college, to like get them to learn leadership is to do stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, go do it. Like, go make things great. Like, and if you make things awesome and great, you don't have to like even really worry about recruiting that much. Like, people are just going to come, and we're seeing that, right? Like, they have over, my first year we had like maybe 80 active members. Mm-hmm. They have over 200.
Yeah, that's insane.
In their third year. And like now they're dealing with growth to a point where it's like, can we keep
too much
going? Yeah, too much growth. Mm-hmm. And that's the insane part, is you're saying it's like, and it's not because, yes, we did redo branding, and we redid our marketing, and that stuff helps, but it's the people and it's the experiences that you have that you go talk. I mean, there's a steering committee member on this year that is only there because of you. Because you introduced him to the organization.
Yeah, and I do when you were talking about like at some point my mind did circle to Cirillo, and kind of like the whole way I was able to get him interested is because he saw how interested and how invested I was in it, you know? Yep. And that sort of thing translates better than any social media post or call out meeting could, when you know somebody, like someone involved in the organization and who you're close with and friends with, and you're like, well, why does he go and spend 3 hours at this building just outside of campus every other day or every day? What's so great about that? A lot of things.
For sure.
But a fun question that popped into my mind: zombie apocalypse, and you get 3 people from SC/RC 2024. Who would you choose?
From your year?
Yeah.
Only.
Yes.
So I only have 17 people to choose from.
You can choose from RC. We'll go SC 20. Well, yeah. We'll go. Yeah. Well, just
your year, RC and SC, or just SC?
RC 2024.
Oh man.
3 people. Zombie apocalypse.
You know, you're setting me up to fail, right?
I am doing that.
Yeah, because like people are gonna be mad. So I gotta have like reasons. It can't be like, I'm gonna pick Julia because she was my favorite. Like, it can't be that, because then everyone would be like, what?
We're gonna do 2 hypotheticals. We're gonna do start a business with, and we're gonna do zombie apocalypse.
That's good to know.
It'll give you a little bit more grace.
Yeah, I gotta think here. Let's see. I'm gonna pull up so I can see. You know, sometimes you gotta visualize the list.
Yeah, you don't, because me and Mead were talking the other day, and we were like, can we even name all the RC people from 2024?
It would not be Mead. Not on an island.
No.
She's gonna be bruh. That's what I was gonna say back.
That's exactly what she said when she heard you say that.
It's a zombie apocalypse. Okay, I gotta find like, who are the Republican gun folks of RC and SC? Because I am anti-gun, so I have nothing.
Yeah, you need some people who are about. I mean, are you gonna find any hard-nosed Republicans in that lineup? I don't know if you are. I mean,
yeah.
the
Will Pitts.
Well, it's depending on what side of the pillow he wakes up on.
Yeah. The other thing is like I have. Okay, so again, it's RC and SC. I'm sorry to
Yes.
everyone on the podcast is listening. Okay,
Yeah.
because it's gonna. I'm gonna be honest. It's gonna probably shift towards RC.
RC, yes,
for a
it will.
very obvious reason, which is
Athletics, yes, athletics.
I mean, and I say this as a non-athletic person, so SC, do not be offended
Yeah.
by it. Okay,
I mean,
here we're gonna go. I'm probably going to take Josh Herbst.
Yes, athlete,
Yeah, I'm gonna take
Smart
Josh
guy.
Herbst. Athlete. Yeah, big dude.
personality, smart guy. Yeah,
He's quiet. And honestly, like, we got to find alcohol, or that's the only way he talks. So, like,
yeah.
it's nice. Like, he's quiet. Like, if we have to hide, I know Josh isn't going to make a peep. Right?
Fair.
If I'm sitting there and I have, like, I don't know, Grace Howard, love Grace.
Can't
But
have
Grace
it.
will want to talk.
Yeah,
She'll want to
no.
talk a lot. So,
Yes,
and
she will.
and if I'm on Desert Island, I'm considering Grace. If I'm in zombie apocalypse,
No.
there.
No.
Another, so Josh Herbst. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass, because I think this is why you actually asked the question. So I would say
No.
you. But I'm gonna choose you, and the reason why I'm gonna choose you is also because of strength, but also because I think you do boxing. And you like
Yeah.
boxing. You're into
Yeah.
fighting.
Yes, yes,
So like,
yes.
so it's there. But then I'm gonna have to choose my third person. Man, I'm gonna be the slowest person in the group. That's the worst part. Like, I should pick like the least athletic person, so they're eating first, so I survive a little bit. But I am definitely gonna be the first one consumed.
Well, who would
this.
the least athletic person be?
I mean, I'm looking at this list and I'm like, I'm slower than everyone on here, so I don't even know who it would be. It would honestly, during this zombie apocalypse, does like Wi-Fi work and like internet and social media?
You don't want Leah Johnson. Why would you want Leah Johnson?
No, it's either Leah or Mao. It's gonna be Leah Mao, because we're gonna have our own podcast during the zombie apocalypse.
That is
and I
true.
need a
That would.
designer to,
Yeah, that is
do
true.
this.
The thing is with Leah.
Okay.
The thing is with Leah is she is literally one of the hardest workers I know. She would just go.
Oh yeah, I know this is there. So they're there. Okay, if the internet doesn't work, the next person I'm gonna pick is Dorothy, because Dorothy probably is tougher than you and Josh and me combined. And she's lived overseas, so like, if we have to like go get overseas and survive, she can introduce us to some people.
Yeah, I will say she used to be my neighbor down the street, and I would see her like with her bike flipped over and like doing mechanics shit on it, and I'd be like, Jesus,
Dorothy's a badass.
that is a tough cookie.
Yep, I'm gonna put Dorothy in there, but there's some honorable mentions. There's some people that, depending on what we're doing, that would be the case.
Yeah. I think my three, just off the top of my dome, real quick. I think I'd throw Mao in there, because he's a hard worker, designer, Mexican. Mexican goes a long way.
I think though Mao's a little soft. Yeah. I said it.
Yeah, he said
he's
it.
a little soft. I don't think he's a fighter. I think he's too nice.
He is a very nice guy.
He's
But I think,
so nice.
But the thing is, most people in SC and RC were just very nice people in general.
I know, that's why I chose you and Josh. I tried to
that's
pick
true.
the most like biggest edge guys that I could.
Biggest edge guy.
Pitts has like Pitts and like Michael Ropp. Michael Ropp would be just being like,
but start a
nice
business.
to everyone.
But start a business with. I mean, Michael Ropp.
We haven't gotten to that point yet. We have to get
Yeah, but I mean, my three. Yeah, I mean, anybody on SC. I hate to say it, but that is just like Ryan James. I would take Ryan James though.
He was on the list. He was definitely an honorable.
He's a workhorse, and he will figure out a way, and he won't complain. He will just keep going, keep chugging along. Ryan James. Who can I think of? I think I have to take Dorothy as well, She just seems like she's a
Cecilia
Cece
Ball
Ball.
would be someone on my list because
Mm-hmm.
she's kind of in the Dorothy camp of just being an absolute badass.
Yeah, yeah.
If we
And
needed spreadsheets, I mean, we call Shannon and Lily. I mean,
yeah.
those are two people that would be up there for sure.
Lily, I just I couldn't put a backpack on her heavier than 30 pounds, I don't think.
Did
Like I
I
don't
think about choosing Conrad because Conrad definitely would be the first person eaten, not because
Yes.
he's less athletic than me, but because he would
do something.
somehow put himself in a situation.
He would
Well, actually, that's not true. Conrad would probably put himself in the situation that all three of us would get eaten, and he would
yeah.
still win.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yes. He'd forget to lock the door or something.
Yes,
Then go for
exactly.
a walk. He'd
Yep.
he'd go for a walk, forget to lock the door. Zombies everywhere. But yeah, definitely not Conrad. Definitely not him. Great guy he is though. And I don't know who my third would be. Maybe be somebody who has some personality, some spunk. I want to pick some. I have to pick somebody on. Oh no, RJ is my SC, RC, and then Mao. Now you got me thinking not Mao, but I'm gonna stick with Mao just because
He's so nice.
he's just so nice.
I mean, Audra, if we need a plan of action, she's
Audra.
plan everything.
I would take her because she is a planner, and she is a not. I don't think she's listening. To be fair, she is a nagger. She will nag you to death. She'll say, "We have to get up and move right now."
That's
we
true.
can't. She was.
You need that group
Yeah.
dynamics. You need that person.
She'll say, "We need
Sure.
to find this before the sun goes down." She will do that, and I will be like, "Okay, but can we at least like quiet time while we do it or something?" Audra, please. But yeah, that's a fun little one. Business easy. Michael Ropp, Rocco Zerilli, and Leah Johnson. Those are my
Okay.
three.
My business. Leah and I do work really well together, so she is going to get mentioned in the three here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard not to just choose my directors of Lily, Leah, and Rishi, because they're all great, just like everybody.
Yeah.
But I do think we need, a accounting math nerd. So Michael and Rocco probably need to be on there. Will Wagner.
Will Wagner, yeah.
Will Wagner, honorable mention for there. So I'm gonna go Leah for sure. I mean, Maya brings some energy. Sometimes you need the energy for a group. That would be there. Another one that I just thought of for the zombie apocalypse is Kira. Yeah, like
She was
like
tough.
CC Dorothy.
She was
level.
tough. Yeah, she was tough.
Yeah.
I think she's dating, isn't she?
Definitely. I don't know. I'm not speculating anything.
I think I was gonna say, could you tell I cut myself off? I don't know if you, but
Okay.
I don't know how close you've kept your ear to the ground, but there's been some dating things going on around that place.
I have not seen. Every so often I see people like on social media
Yeah.
like, together, and I'm like, oh, they're probably together.
Hopefully
Okay, so
happy.
my choices are going to be Rishi, Lily, and Leah. Yeah, I'm choosing my directors. I know their skill sets and how they work and what we can do together. Rishi can be the math money guy. Lily can be the tech person. And Leah can be the marketer. So I don't know what we're selling. I don't know what business we're selling, but that would be it. There's some great ones. There's Pitch, Shannon would be great.
Yeah, I
There's,
mean, honestly.
Rocco, like the other four that I worked with, but I just know their functions, and that would be easier.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think Krista has to get a mention because I know she'll be furious if she doesn't. God bless her.
I mean, if you were asking me if you want to start a nonprofit, Chris is probably in my top.
She is.
Yeah, but the cold-hearted capitalism that is business maybe not Krista's thing.
What? I guess out of curiosity, what went into that decision? I'm not saying I was opposed to Krista being my president. She will always be my president. But I don't know. Out of all the names in the hat, why is that the one that you guys kind of elected to go with? Just curious.
I'll talk more. Sorry, I'm going to take an easy out
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
on Ramp
obviously.
here and say I'll talk more in terms of what goes into that decision every year, because I think that's a huge part of this, right? Is that it's a rhythm thing that in the student foundation, and they used to do it differently. Of course, another thing that I changed, right? You used to have to interview for the president, vice president position, and kind of go that route. And I have a philosophy that you are interviewing for your next job on the first day of your current job. And I think the Gunner and Wheeler process sets it up to where, and RC juniors to seniors, sets it up to where you are able to observe how people interact. Because a 15-minute interview or 30-minute interview, you've probably had them, I've had them. I think it's hard to tell. I think it's hard to get things out. Like, we've been going for an hour in this podcast, right?
Yeah.
And like, that's way longer than some interviews I get. And hopefully someone listening to this would understand me more than a 30-minute interview that I'm nervous to do and like all that stuff. So like, you observe it long term. And so what we kind of look for is we look for, you're all leaders, right? You all obviously are dedicated and passionate, or you don't get chosen for steering committee. So you kind of have to be like, how do their peers interact with them? How do peers interact with them? How do staff interact with them? What are they passionate about? What do they go with, right? And for an instance like your year, we wanted to put a lot more emphasis on students helping students and just the student the philanthropy side, right? Yeah. So like, maybe like you don't choose someone who's super passionate about bikes because you want the whole group to kind of drift towards a leader that is passionate about this other thing. And I think that's stuff that you have to calculate, and it's razor thin usually in decision making. It's razor thin to do that. Plus, we do have peer evaluations, and we read those and get people's feedback on stuff. So like, that does set people out in that way.
Yeah, no. And I remember, like, when Krista was chosen, I remember not being surprised, but I think no matter who gets picked, there's always going to be question marks, like, this is the person they went with. No, and again, I'm saying I think I would have felt that way for anybody who got picked, because you just don't know. You just don't know, obviously. But as the weeks involved, the months involved, I could absolutely, to your point, that was her thing, was the philanthropic side. And obviously we were able to be really successful at that. And she even, in her own way, like, motivated me to do the stuff from the student engagement and diversifying kind of our relationships around campus. She was more than helpful in orchestrating all that and motivating me to do that. And hopefully, I mean, I don't know what Sana's doing over there much. I only hear what kind of trickles down, but I'm sure she's doing a fabulous job in her own right.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because as gunners, you actually L5C2 is usually the thing that people want to be a part of the most.
Yeah,
and that's what they want to work with. But the last, I don't know, 4 people chosen didn't come out of L5C2 work, and so and I think that's not a tip to the current gunners of like, you're not going to be considered if you're on L5C2. It's just, the thing that is the hardest part of this change, or the hardest part of the change, was to be like, we're more than a bike race.
Yeah,
like, there's
absolutely
more to this organization than that. And the gunners that show that ability, like, you need the ones that are passionate about bikes. Like, you need the Ella Curtis, right? You need the one that's going to sleep at the track.
Yeah.
And Abby and like those folks you need. But you also need the folks that are like, oh, this is not just the Little 500 and that student organization. And so like, when they have 30 gunners, they're probably going to look at it from a standpoint of who's doing more than just one specific thing. And that's a key aspect of the process of choosing.
Yeah, and I remember I was on the engagement committee, which made all the sense in the world. I kind of knew it going into it. I'm like, they're going to put me on engagement, which was great. But then obviously engagement turned into pre-race, which at first I was like, oh, Jesus, I have to be at track all week my senior year again. But what was great about it is I really obviously got a lot of face-to-face time with all the gunners that year. And you know, I kind of got to take a step back and see, you know, who kind of steps up.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's knock out this today. Why not try to knock out this today?
Hmm.
How about we try it this way? That sort of thing. And you realize that it's not a lot of times people just think that if I speak the loudest and I talk the most and I kind of point my finger the most and say, let's do X, Y, and Z, that is leadership.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's a miscalculation because, you know, leadership is also being able to understand what you excel at and what you're not so good at.
You're drifting into the conversation about like that you read in books and leadership theories like followership. Like
Yeah.
that's also really important. Followership, like a strong leader is like a really good follower too, because like
Yeah.
they understand the aspect of like the experience of being the follower,
Yeah.
and then so that they can relate to those that they're leading, and you don't need I don't need we talked about Elaine earlier, and I don't need 17 lanes, right? Like Elaine's a great leader, big personality, you know, empathetic, like all this stuff. If I had 17 of the lanes, it would be a disaster.
Yeah. That's a lot of,
And that it's not 17 Peters,
yeah,
17 Romans, like
exactly.
17
Yeah.
Roccos, like it would be the same. You need a diversity of approach to worldviews, approach to the leadership or work ethic approach to different stuff, because I think that's really really important. And there's a lot of actually like research done. There's a professor at IU that studies this. He calls it superstars and black holes, and he's like, you can't have a team full of superstars and you can't have a team full of black holes. You actually need a little bit of the tension of both those things to make the best type of team. And I think that's where you're right. Like you don't need to be the loudest in the room. Sometimes the loudest in the room is the one that like peers cannot get along with. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, that can't be a person in the team.
Yeah.
Like it just can't. And then other times you can be so quiet that you're forgotten about. Like we
Yes,
get
exactly.
to decision day and we're like, who's this person?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
There's a
balance.
sweet, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why, like, when I look at pre-race last year, I mean, we were able to, you know, get the whole thing set up, I think, by Wednesday or at the very latest, like, maybe we had a few things to touch up on Thursday. But if you look at the three of us, it was me, Maya, and Mead. And me and Mead could not be more disalike in the way we approached that entire semester. I was always of the mind of like, and Amy too, like her Amy and Mead would kind of like think get each other riled up of like, oh my goodness, we still need to get do this and this still needs to get done, and oh my God, we're only 3 weeks away. And I would be sitting in the meeting just kind of, you know, like, guys, we're gonna get it done. And you were my advisor for one semester, and I don't know. I think
Yeah.
I kind of approached it that same way, where I would kind of just I would listen. There's this term I had to learn it because as you know, I am a talker. But it's like if you're talking, you're not listening. If you're not listening, you're not learning. So basically, whenever I would walk into those meetings, a lot of times I would just kind of sit back, see what are we pitching today? What are people thinking? How are people feeling? And kind of how can I fit into all this, and you know, what can I bring to the table, what workload can I take on, approach to this problem can I take, to, you know, help get things done. And Mead was very much on top of things all the time, everything everywhere all at once. Maya was an excellent planner, and she did all the little things that I hate to do. I hate, like,
Yeah.
just would nag me to do, you know, just like oh, well, we have to make sure we send a reply email to this person, or make sure that we send out an email telling the kids that the meeting's canceled today because of blah, 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 or, you know, that sort of stuff where I was just like, not my thing. Not my thing.
Well, you actually bring that up, and I think that's kind of interesting because we talked about at the very beginning of this episode where staff makes decisions or changes, and then like in the moment everyone hates it, right? And the committee changes was something that we changed from prior administrations of the Student Foundation, where they would have whole new committees in the spring as different than the fall. I wanted more continuity all the way through. And then second, they used to do a full committee reveal like we did at retreat or before retreat. They would like have this whole big thing, like get the committee reveal at the retreat, and then at the holiday party they would do another reveal for the spring. And I know people really like that, but from the sake of doing the work, like it was not conducive to continuity. It was not conducive to putting people in the best skills in place. And they used to ask you, they would go, Roman, what committees do you want to be on? And then they would just basically like rank you off preferences, and staff would place you. And I got rid of all that. And the reason why is because I think sometimes people don't know themselves because they haven't gone through the work of what that is. So a great example of this, Rachel, who was our fall engagement member, is awesome. And she is, it's a vibes person, very different than you. Like she's so nice, so welcoming, that kind of stuff. And like, and like also like great input, great insight. She was perfect for the committee work that was happening in the fall. Then, we go to spring. Rachel is in an intensive program, as you know. We know what pre-race entails time-wise. And it's not that she couldn't have done it. It was just like when we looked at the alumni who would have less things to do potentially in the spring, putting her there, giving her her welcoming. And alumni committee, I would argue, was the closest committee of people in the spring of that year. And I think that's, Conrad, Snigda, and Rachel did a good job of that. But I think it's also because the elements that Rachel brings, not that Mead couldn't have done that, but Mead's organizing ability would have been better for pre-race. And that's what we needed over there. And so that type of, and there was some upsetness about that. And there was upsetness this past year. We switched some things. And I think pat ourselves on the back, I guess, but I think it all worked out.
I did, dude. And I will say the day of the race, or specifically the men's race, because the women's race was great. Actually, I kind of preferred the women's race. I think 100 laps is just fine. I think 100 laps is more than fine. Because when because you get to the 100th lap on the men's race, and you're like, we still have 100 more. And it's kind of like, what did we do this first 100 for? But either way, the men's race, it's obviously the last one. So, man, I remember just being, I try to remember the day. But, I remember just them crossing the finish line, Will Wagner crossing the finish line, and everyone else following soon thereafter. And it was Rachel and Mead to the left and right of me, who are probably two of, if not the closest people I was closest with throughout the school year. And you know me, dude. I'm hard. I try to play the cool guy persona. I try to act like I'm too cool for school sometimes. And I'm telling you, I'm even thinking about it now. I remember them coming across the finish line and just being like, wow, that is it. That is it. It is done. We put the work in. We saw it through, not even just over the last week to set the whole venue up, but, obviously, we can extend it all the way back to the junior year, for me at least. And then going through the process, and then here we are now all of a sudden, and then it was it was a lot. It was a lot, and it was just, I remember talking to my dad after words and telling him, I'm like, I don't know what else I'm going to do in my life. I don't know, obviously, what I will accomplish or not accomplish, or the things I will see. But I know that for a fact is one thing that I will always look at as one of my greatest accomplishments, and one of the best things I was ever to be able to be a part of. Such a random thing, too. The nation's largest collegiate bike race.
It is. Well, it goes back to your very first question. How do you explain this to people? It's hard to do, but that feeling is easy for people to relate to, because it is a sense of accomplishment, but not only just crossing a finish line, but you did it really well. And
Yes.
that's something that we always want to unlock in this experience, is a feeling of satisfaction that, you know, you not only did something, you did something great.
Absolutely. Oh, great things. All right, we are going to wrap it up here soon, but before we do, I just have a couple of quick fire questions, a couple of
Yeah.
best of Bloomington questions,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to start throwing them out there, and you just give me the first thing that comes to your mind. Sound good? Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, here we go. First things first, easy one here. Best Bloomington bar.
Best Bloomington bar, Alley Bar.
No one knows what that is. You chose the one that nobody knows what that is.
No, it's great. I mean, there's a reason why it's the best, and students don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah, nice. I'm glad to know the instructors had somewhere to go after their long days. Okay. Next up, best Bloomington breakfast place.
I think Bloomington breakfast isn't actually very good. I'm gonna be honest,
It's hard to come.
but yeah, I don't think it's like Ann Arbor has a lot of places up here that we love. Yeah, but I'm gonna say Gables Bagels. Like, I love Gables Bagels. I'm going there. I will go there this weekend.
I had a bad experience there once. I don't know if I'll ever be back. I went in there.
Okay.
I said, "What bagel?" I said, "What bagel should I get?" They said, "Get the salty bagel." I said, "Okay, I'll get the salty bagel." The bagel was way too salty. I think they were playing a joke on me or something, because I heard it from two of their workers. They were like, "Did you say salty bagel?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh yeah, you should get the salty bagel." It was the worst thing ever. Moving on.
Fair.
Best Bloomington clothing store for all your IU merch.
I got free stuff.
Oh,
I don't think I ever bought. The only place I ever bought something in Bloomington, clothes wise, was probably Andrew Davis. Just because that's a place to go get suits. And get
you
measured.
did, yeah.
And as I kept gaining weight, you know, you gotta keep getting new suits. But like, I got a lot of free stuff, and then you just order online. So
Yeah.
I'm a bad. I don't like Andrew Davis culture. I don't really love. So I won't put that in my favorite. It was out of necessity.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You were getting a lot of stuff for free. I got a lot of free stuff too, but you know, my answer would have been Tracks right down the street from Village Deli. Cheap, affordable, nice little shirts. Usually they run a 2 for $25 deal. I will be partaking this weekend. Best Bloomington experience.
The best Bloomington experience. I'm not going to actually say the Little 500 because I don't really. I mean, the Little you were talking about this earlier, especially with the men's race, and both women's races that I was a part of were the second one was good. The first one was raining cold. That's why I was going with that. But I love the women's race, the 100 laps stuff. So the Little 500 should be on the list, top of everybody's list. But I've never really done the Little 500. I haven't done it from a fan perspective.
Yeah.
I'd only been to one before, and I only went for like 30 minutes and was like, okay, this is a long pre-race.
Yeah.
This is like a really long thing. I don't know anyone. It wasn't that interesting to me. So I would say the best Bloomington experience is football Saturdays. You know, I'm a huge college football fan. And so tailgating, we lived right by the stadium. And so walking to the stadium was awesome. And then just tailgating with friends and then going to the game was some of my wife and I's fondest memories of Bloomington.
Yeah, that's lovely. Lovely, lovely. And I do also want to, and I can speak to that same mindset of I've never experienced it as a fan either. Because sophomore year I didn't go. Junior year I was working, and Saturday senior year, and I was in a suit in the middle of the field. You know, so definitely not the same experience as the people sitting in the bleachers. So hopefully I get to see what that's like this upcoming weekend. To the best of
where the peasants are on the outside of the track.
Yeah, exactly, right? They're gonna kick me off. I still haven't bought my ticket. I will say that I gotta buy that today. Remind me to do that today. Okay.
There's a shot that they sell out.
I know.
Great for the race. That's gonna hurt it. But like if it was the same weather as last year, I think they'd sell out. From what I've heard, they're about 2,000 or 3,000 tickets ahead of last year's pace, and we almost sold out last year.
Those bastards. Bittersweet. Good for them. God bless them.
Get your ticket.
Two more here. Best place in Bloomington most people don't know about.
Best place in Bloomington that most people don't know about. Oh man. That's a great question because I think a lot of the stuff that I did, people definitely knew. It would have been Fresh Time for a long time on the west side.
Oh
Then
yeah.
they got one on the east side.
Yeah.
So like people know more about Fresh Time than they did, but for the longest time that was there because I used to live on the west side and I thought the west side was great. I'll go with the Uplands Tap Room on the west side. I think it's back open.
Yeah, I never
It
been in
was
there.
closed after COVID. It was closed for like 2 years. But on Sundays, they used to do $2 drafts, and now they're doing like $3. I think they like raise the price. But we used to go there for Sunday Fun Day quite a bit.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I never, I wasn't old enough to go in there. Even when I was 21, they said you have to be at least 30. So,
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
my answer, I was really a big fan of the Bloomington Antique Mall. I don't know if you'd ever been in there,
I
or if you know.
know.
No, it's
I'm not a junk collector. Like I don't like buying things for the sake of buying them. So those places aren't usually intriguing to me.
I liked it because it was a really cheap date option. I would take a girl out, we'd get food. I'd say, let's go to the Bloomington Antique Mall. It's just a bunch of stuff. Like people can like have their own, sell their items within it. So it's like vintage clothing, random items for like 3 floors. And you can spend like 2 hours in there and walk out and not spend a dime. But at least, you got 2 free hours of conversation without having to take a girl to, somewhere.
I mean, I studied relational communication. If you ever want to talk about dating and like my advice and all that, that's a whole nother podcast. But Antique Mall's a good one.
Yeah, Antique Mall is a good one. Dating advice, we're about 2 years too late. You should have told me this earlier. But either way, maybe we'll steer it back. We'll circle back to this one day.
Yeah.
Maybe this weekend. Last one.
There you go.
Last one. A place in Bloomington no one would ever find you.
Oh man, Kilroy Sports.
Really?
I've been to the original. I mean, the Kilroy's on Kirkwood.
Yeah.
I've been there 3 times, I think. 2 during holiday breaks and 1 during graduation, the night of graduation, 2019. But Kilroy Sports is one I've never ventured in, and I probably will never venture in.
Yeah, I was a big time partaker in Kilroy Sports during my time at IU. I don't know if that ever hit your ear.
If I was a college kid, I think I would love it. But I just nowadays I don't really go out anymore like that. Anyways, I mean, it's the reason why Alley Bar was chosen as my favorite bar.
Yeah.
Like Upstairs, probably. I loved Upstairs. I don't know if I'd go back. It's so crowded nowadays.
It's crazy now, yeah.
Yeah. I think I would avoid even Upstairs.
Yeah. I mean, for me too, that was like my go-to bar, but I visited twice this over the last year, and every time I walk in there, I want, it's a headache. And I'm sure this weekend, I can only imagine. I'm trying not to think about that part of being back in Bloomington, of how chaotic it will be while I'm down there. But I'm just gonna wrap my mind around it. Either way.
Well, I did the Little 500 preview podcast with Will Pitts and Jenna Rogers. Jenna was on RC the year before you.
Yeah, I remember Jenna Rogers. Was she an AKO?
Yep. She won ITTs her senior year. She was a stud. But we were talking about going back, and you will not find me at Nick's. You will not find me at Upstairs. Like I'm just. If you have SC members, this comes out before the Little 500 this weekend. Hearing this, I will not be out. Like that's the thing. Yes, I didn't go out when I was staff for very clear reasons, but I will. Like it is. I'm coming to the race. I'll see people at the race. And then I'm going home, and that's kind of how it is. Because I don't want to wait in lines and be like
and it'd be a weird look if you did. So you know what? I respect it.
I mean, you get to the point like now. I mean, obviously, I would have a drink with you, whatever. Like as
Yeah.
students, you don't do that. That's why I always host that alumni parties because like once you all graduate, like I have no problems with that. But it's just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I think this weekend will probably be my retirement at the Kilroy Sports. I don't see myself stepping in there after this weekend. Hopefully not. If it is, then yeah. If you do see me in there again within the next, I would say 18 years. Not a good call. I don't know what I'm doing. Ask me how I've been, what I'm doing. Maybe when my child goes there, I'll make one more appearance, but
Dad's weekend.
Dad's weekend? Hopefully not, because that means my daughter's in a sorority, and I don't want that to happen. Please. But either way, is there anything before we wrap up? Any questions you have for me? Any comments? Anything you want to let the people know?
Well, I actually pulled this up. Hold on just one second. You had said that the Instagram, or you said on Instagram that I was one of the first people that or I taught you that adults could be funny or something like
Yes.
that. And that's always stuck with me. But then you have a more emotional one here that I just wanted to do a dramatic reading. So for context for the listeners, SC was asked, I didn't know this, it was asked to like give quotes about me or those type of things as I was leaving. And it was very nice and it was orchestrated by staff to go. And so I have this book and it's here. And if Amy and Emily are listening to this, I actually still have this. They thought I would get rid of it because I don't keep things. But you said, I'm going to do a dramatic reading. Roman Garcia. Where do I begin? From the beginning? From the end? Does this mark the beginning of the end, or merely the end of our beginning? It is not for me to say, however. What was evident at the beginning was all but fact by the end. And the fact of the matter is, Trent, you got stuff done. For the very first time I met you and you mistakenly called me Rocco, it was clear that you cared about what you did, why you did it, and most importantly, who you did it with. I had the fortune of seeing you nearly every day my senior year, and I'm grateful to say I learned so much from you about what it means to be a student, worker, and friend. I'll miss your nicely lined beard and sharply done haircuts, and I will certainly miss you. Just want to say I wanted to do a dramatic reading of that and say thank you for the kind note. And 100%, I called you Rocco. I could not call you Rocco for a really long time. So, but we got that cleared up. You asked me how we chose president, vice president. I chose Rocco as vice president just so I could remember who Rocco was, and I stopped calling you Rocco.
Yeah, that was great. It was like I remember the first time you said it so confidently, and I almost had to question myself. I was like, "Is this?"
I mean, you look like a Roman, but you could argue you look like Rocco too.
You can make that argument, but yeah, could you tell? I mean, how great is that note, though? I mean, that is. I think that really speaks.
It's AI's fine. It's artificial intelligence.
It is not, dude. What do you do not put that on?
Just kidding. No, I did. It was a great note. I loved it, and you always make me laugh, Roman. It is true, and that was a good intro to the nice things that you said.
Yes,
the beginning versus the end. Yep.
And clearly, it's not the end. Look at us now.
Look at us. Who'd have thought?
Who would have thought? Not me. Oh, Jesus. I get those. Yeah, I'm glad to see those jokes hit your airwaves too on Facebook or whatever you're on nowadays. Oh, but either way, Trent, it's been a dandy of a time. 90 minutes flew by. My ears are hot from these headphones. But anyways, I look forward to seeing you this weekend. People, make sure you check out The Little 500 if you can. Check out the IU Student Foundation if you can. I don't know why I'm still plugging them.
Students helping students.
Donate, unlike me, who will donate today as well as buy their ticket. But yes, if you're interested in a school, go to IU. And if you're at IU, join the Student Foundation, and you will see the merits of it. Me and Trent obviously spent 90 minutes speaking to that, and it's brought me so many great connections, so many great friends, and especially so many great memories. And Trent was definitely a big part of that as well. So I want to thank you for meeting with us today, meeting with the Talkaholic podcast host himself. And I look forward to seeing you this weekend, buddy.
Thanks, Roman.
You take care. Bye, everybody. Okay. Cool.